if you've been on some of our webinars in the past, you might be familiar with this slide, but I always like to start with a little bit of context. And I suppose for those of us who are involved in the world of transportation, traffic, parking, and so on, really you'll be familiar with the context here. And that is that as a nation, we're working to achieve very significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. We're aiming to achieve net zero by 2050 and reduce our transport emissions by 50% by 2030. And that's what underpins everything I guess we want to talk about today, and probably everything that many of you are working at on a day-to-day basis. And of course, in the context of that decarbonisation effort, school transport and travel to school plays a very big and will play a very big role in decarbonising. And before I hand over to Susan, again, just some context here in terms of school travel, some of which you may be familiar with. The National Household Travel Survey, the last one that was published by the NTA in 2023, showed that journeys to education account for almost 80% of all trips made on a daily basis. The last census in 2022 showed that 55% of children are still driven to school. Now, I think it's very positive to note that that was down by 5%. It was down from 60% in the previous census. So something's working. You know, the collective effort that everybody is working on is starting to show success. And also in the last census, it showed that there was an 80%, 79%, I think, in post-primary and 80-something% in primary increase in cycling to school, which is fantastic to see. A key goal in the Climate Action Plan, hopefully we'll see 2025's action plan published soon, but certainly in the last couple of iterations of that, a key goal is that we're trying to shift 30% of all escort to education journeys to more sustainable modes. And the school sector climate action mandate that was published in 2023 had a very clear goal to promote sustainable and active travel within the school community. And again, as I'm sure you all know, there's significant ongoing investment going on in active travel, the National Cycle Network, School Transport Scheme, and of course, brilliant programs like Taisce's Green Schools and Taisce's Safe Routes to School programme. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to Susan, who, as I say, I'm really delighted to have join us today. Susan is one of 7 infrastructure officers with the Safe Routes to School programme, which was set up in 2021, and she covers an area from Louth down through Meath, Kildare and Wicklow. Previous to that, Susan was the team leader for Leinster for the Green Schools Travel programme. So she knows this area intimately well. She also spent a number of years as the education officer on the Golden Dock Smarter Travel project. And I guess it's fair to say, Susan, fairly passionate about sustainable travel and cycling to school.
Yeah, that's it. I'll just share my screen here.
Yeah, I'll hand over to you.
That's lovely. So thanks so much, Mary, now for giving me this opportunity to talk to everybody and to really just to share my experiences of what it is like working with schools. I will start my presentation here just by giving you an overview of what Safe Routes to School is, just in case there's anybody out there who hasn't heard about it or doesn't know what it is. And then we'll get into the meaty stuff, the parking at the school gate. So I suppose, first of all, you know, Safe Routes to School, it isn't a parking programme. That's what some of our principals, as we arrive at the gate, oh great, you're going to help us get more parking at our school. No, we won't be doing that, but I'll get into and explain to you now what we're actually going to be doing. So, as Alan said there, we started the programme in 2021, and it came really out as the legacy of the work that was carried out by my colleagues and myself in Green Schools Travel, and we really saw the need there that we needed to have an infrastructure programme. We got together with the NTA, and it's funded by the Department of Transport, and we launched the programme. When the applications opened to all of our schools, every school in Ireland, primary and secondary, let's just say the inbox was overflowing, and we were very much oversubscribed. So we had over 930 schools out of the 4,500 or so primary schools applied. So when I say the numbers here are colossal, like they really are, you know, it's quite mind-boggling. So bear with me when I do get into some of the numbers later on, but it just shows you, though, the demand that is there for this. This is such a particular topic. So yeah, so we launched our schools. The first round, we broke them into different rounds, and I won't get into all how we did that, but we've got through that anyway, how we were going to score them and so on. So we took on 170 schools in round one. And myself, and we had a very small team at that time, it was only about 5 or 6 of us, and we worked through those. 2022, then we launched the second round, 108 schools, and then in 2024, we launched round 3, 141 schools. And then this year, towards the end of last year, we have a new theme to the program where we have high-speed rural roads. And again, this was to address the issue that we had, that we could do very little with these high-speed rural roads. So we made a special, slightly different program for them, and we're working our way through those as well. We actually now have over 400 schools actively engaged, which is just colossal. Like, it's a huge amount of schools. And while we're actually working with round 3, you have to remember, I'm working still with round 2 and round 1 that are being built. So there's a lot of movement in this space. It's very interesting. It's amazing. It's amazing what we can do. But the numbers are quite frightening. So we moved through, and I'm going to explain a little bit about how we do what we do. So our focus here is we look at the school gate. So we have 3 kind of strands to the program. We do the front of the school gate audits. We look at the school gate. We improve then the safety along the routes. So we look at the routes, and then we also look at increasing the number of cycle parking and actually scooter parking at schools. There's just some nice pictures there of some, cycle parking delivered in Kilkenny. Another scheme there in Limerick as well. You can see the dots on the roundels on the road surface. So they're the 3 main, I suppose, pillars, the main strands, the focus of our program. And the next thing then is how we actually do all of that. So our approach is we look for a lot of information and a lot of data from the school community, and I'll get into how we do that. So we gather a lot of information from them. That then is used then to mobilise the local authorities in the design and the delivery then of the walking and cycling infrastructure. So some local authorities can deliver the schemes themselves. They'll do the designs in-house. Most others, though, it goes out to a design consultancy and then so on. So there is a time element into it. Our job then is to actually encourage the schools to champion the works, and so that's really by them taking ownership of the works. And again, I'll explain a little bit how we do that. And ultimately, the game here is just to get the kids walking and cycling to school. It's really simple. None of this is rocket science. However, as we all know, when we talk about parking, it's like a dirty word, isn't it? And, people, we love our parking. We're mad for it. We can't get enough of it. We have to get to as close to that school gate as possibly. If we can get into the school gate, even better. And I see this every day, day in, day out when I'm out at schools. Yeah, so we have a lot of work in this space to do. So we know as well, it's not just about the infrastructure. So I'll show you how we do our actual process. So again, as I say, it's not rocket science. We have a very simple process, but how we work our way through, and I'll talk you through this. So we start off when our schools applied, we got them to fill out an expression of interest. So that school profile helps us then to see exactly what's going on at the school and what their issues were. We did our own desktop research on all of those 930 schools at the very beginning as well. And that's how we were able to find out then, what needs to be done at these schools before we even go out to them. We use ArcGIS, then the survey 123, for the parent survey. So we sent out a parent survey, and that's brilliant. So that's a link that's sent out. We send an email to our schools with all of the text. All they have to do is copy and paste it. So we give them any bit of information that they need. So to keep it really simple and to give the principals and the schools as less work as possible. They send the link out. We get all that information back, and we can then, again, it's amazing data that we have on our dashboard now. So we have all of the results of the school surveys then collated. I'm going to show you some samples as well later on, which are really interesting. It's one of the favourite parts of the job. I love that. We then go out to the school and we do a front of school survey, and that, or front of school assessment, and that literally is just standing outside the school gate, watching what's going on in the morning times and then the afternoon. Some schools have maybe a back entrance as well, or a side entrance or whatever, so we have to do maybe several days on that. We then, on the same time, then we'd usually go and audit the routes as well. So again, the routes have come out of the parent survey, so we've got that data. We know where the children are travelling from, and we use that data then to look at the routes of what we can do. So then my job then is to sit down with the local authorities then after that visit, and we'll pull together then, I will draft up a draft delivery plan that gets peer reviewed. It also goes to the NTA, and then we thrash it out then with the local authority as to what's feasible. We bring that then to the school, and we call that the brainstorming or stakeholder engagement meeting. And this is where things really start to shift. This is where we have to really bring in, if we can ask their principal, the board of management members, their parents association member, maybe a local community rep. It could be somebody who looks after the community centre, Tidy Towns rep, parish priest, very important. And then it could be the Gaelic club chairperson. People like this who are key stakeholders, we ask them to come to that brainstorming session. And that's where we'll really break it all down and break down the plan and see what is actually feasible, what do they really want. And then my job then is to turn that into what we call an outline delivery plan. And that gets sent then to the local authority. And they will then send it out to their designers, and the process goes on then. So that's really the outline of what actually happens there. We also use part of the front of school and the audit routes. We use what we call, we've developed a walkability audit tool on an app for that, which is amazing. So again, we have all the data at our fingertips. We have a dashboard created, so we can actually isolate all of the schools that have one particular issue, or if they have the same issue that reoccurs several times, we're able to identify that. So again, all the data that we collect, it's all digital, which is brilliant. So it's really, really helpful then, for developing our program as well, and sharing them with the consultants. They love our delivery plans. I've had such amazing positive feedback on the delivery plan. So it makes it all that worthwhile for the hours that we spend on drafting them, because it's an awful lot of work put into them, believe you me. And do I put this in, do I take it out? But it really does help that that they're actually very valued at the end. We literally lay out everything that they need. It's a very high level, but they're able to pick out all the bits and pieces so far. And actually that number's probably even changed since this morning. We've plans drafted for over 240 schools. So we're working through those numbers, but as I say, I don't want to dwell on them too much, because it's very scary when you think of how many we have to try and get through. So let me get into the nitty gritty then of what we actually do, kind of, I suppose, and other works that can help support the delivery. So we have a monitoring and evaluation officer. So that's somebody who actually does monitoring. She'll actually install air quality monitors outside schools, and consistently then there's, we do the pre-work surveys, but then there's post-travel surveys as well, and that information is amazing to see. So we're actually seeing, how is this infrastructure working, and is it working? And that's really important. We follow up with our schools with communications and support, and that's really helpful for them. Again, I cannot stress enough how busy schools are, especially May and June. They're absolutely on top of themselves. Whatever works we can do to help a school goes down so well with them. It's really well received. They love us for that. And we've always carried that through in all of our other things in Green Schools Travel, and before that as well. We are very, very conscious and very aware of how busy they are. So we need to give them things that all they need to do is copy and paste and send out. So we do our own monthly newsletters, and anybody here, you can all subscribe to them as well. Again, really helpful of what's going on each month and what we're achieving. And then we put together school flyers, newsletters and flyers for the schools. They can take whatever they want out of them, edit them, whatever they need to do. But again, it's just really helpful for principals, that information of what currently is happening at their school. And we like to do them as well ahead of some of the works, especially if it's a tricky, scheme, that it's explaining what is happening and what are the different elements and what do they mean. One of the other things we do, I suppose, is that we talk a lot. We talk to our colleagues, we talk to each other, we talk to, our local authorities, and we share experiences. And I'm such a believer in those connections that you make, and I really feel very strongly about them. Because I've worked as a travel officer myself, a lot of the schools that I have the privilege of working with again now, I did work with them before, so I know what their issues were. And it's such a wonderful feeling to be able to come back with an engineer and designer, and to be able to say, right, we're here now, we have this budget for you, we can actually do some of these works that you were looking for maybe 10, 15 years ago. So it's very, very rewarding, very fulfilling. But it's really wonderful that you can actually help those schools get a safe crossing or a footpath in, or whatever it is they were looking for. So really, really helpful. So I really wanted to share some little sample of just some of the works that we do. And this was just a school I happened to be at yesterday. So it's in Dunne. Very, very, very busy town. Oh my gosh. And it's not somewhere I travel through very often. I don't really have the need to, but it is such a busy, busy town. This school has over 600 children in it, and it's one of three primary schools in the area. You can see this is the slide here is showing the picture. This is our heat map. So this is showing the density here, where we can see most of the children are traveling within that 1 kilometre. Okay, so straight away that's telling me, we can get most of these kids hopefully walking. They're well within the 1 kilometre walking distance. And we can see then a chart is saying that actually 42% are walking. However, we've 28% coming by car. So we need to get that down. The park and stride, we can see there 10.3, scooting, school bus and cycling. These are excellent results actually, which is really good. And it's very, now again, this is another school that we worked on Green Schools Travel with. So I know that ethos is really embedded in the school, and we had a great meeting with the principal and deputy principal yesterday about this. So we'll be working with this school. We've identified already several park and stride car parks, and that's something we'll be pushing here. In this particular school, where the main entrance is down a side street in a residential area, and it's just not appropriate for parents to be driving down and doing U-turns outside it. So we, having this data before we go out to a school was really, really helpful. Before we actually start working on anything like that. The other thing which I cannot share with you on screen just for GDPR, but is when you see that density map, so we can actually toggle off some of the information there and toggle on other ones where I can identify every parent who filled in the survey. I can see exactly where they are traveling from, but I can also see the mode of travel. So we do that too. So we print that out and we bring it to the school, and I show it to them, and I show it to the local authority. We can't obviously share it, as I say, for GDPR, but it's invaluable, and it's amazing to see the principals, especially, they'll know, like, oh my gosh, that's such and such a family. They're well able to walk, or they shouldn't be driving, or they could easily come, or they could carpool. And that's another thing that might come out of the survey as well. So I love our data. I love the way we collect it. It's really helpful when, I'm actually there face to face with the school and working with them. And again, for the local authority, they wouldn't necessarily get access, have the access to this data either. But we share the survey results with our local authorities so they can see exactly where, what's going on. So it's just invaluable. You can't argue with the figures. Just some celebrations. I was saying to Alan and Mary earlier on, we are actually in the process. Our annual report for 2024 will be released any day now. So we will share the slides once that's been released, but I did just want to share some of the good news that we have with you, just because I know you're all itching to find out what's going on. But it is phenomenal. Like we just have an amazing amount of schools that we're working with. We've 412 schools who are actively working in the program at the moment, which is a massive amount of number. We've 31 local authorities engaged. We've 212 outline delivery plans already sent out. So like it's just huge. The numbers are just massive. So we are working through, and if you are in a local authority and you're wondering, oh my gosh, is anything happening or what's going on? Yes, we are really, really working hard behind the scenes. There's just such a phenomenal amount of work to be done. But it's great to see now, into this next year now that we are really, really motoring along. We're getting through them. So yeah, and again, just a big thank you to the local authorities for their amazing active travel teams. We couldn't do it without you, Just a few more little numbers here, because I know we were looking at a little bit of specifics. We've over 10,700 parking spaces actually delivered. And I mean, the school I was at yesterday, their cycle parking was jam-packed. They had 3 racks of scooter parking, all completely full. They need another cycle shelter. So this is just, so, we can see, it's like, build it and they will come. They will actually, if you put in a cycle shelter, they will fill it and they will look for more. It's lovely to see some of these school streets as well, families and parents and children are able to congregate, and we've so many more of them happening, over 97 of them, which is a huge number, because they're not an easy thing to get set up in a school, to get buy-in. And then just seeing these lovely schemes completed, it's amazing to see just the difference it is making outside of our school. So again, huge variety, all across the breadth of Ireland. It's amazing, but very, very inspiring. So now, folks, I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty, get into the meaty bits, and just share a few case studies. So just bear with me. There is a lot of text. I'm not going to read it all out, but just again, I just lifted these out of our annual report just because I just thought they were worth sharing here with today. So this is a case study from a school this one is in Leitrim, so St. Joseph's National School. Again, over a third of the 230 pupils live within 1 kilometre of the school. So, and this is possible due to the network of the footpaths that they have within the village. Biggest problem here is the little quote there from the parent survey is that the parents are parking cars in the bus stop. I mean, this one you hear over and over again. The yellow box and along the zigzag lines. It is so dangerous, but it continually happens despite numerous emails from the principal. So when we arrive at a school, or when I arrive at a school, very often the principal like, oh, thank God you're here. Can you sort our parking out? And that's when I have to say, Safe Routes to School is not a parking problem or not a parking program, but let's see what we can do. So we have to really try and flip that mindset. We have to really try and get that principal on board and saying, look, you know, we need to try and get the cars away, get the vehicles away from the front of school. So how can we do that? So this particular one, what we actually did do was basically working with the school community, getting their input and into the actual into the delivery plan. Works were completed by Leitrim Council, and basically some of the infrastructure that they did was formalising the dedicated blue bus bay, or the blue badge parking, sorry, the bus bay and the blue badge parking, which you can see here. Signage and road markings improved the visibility of the school and improved crossing facilities, and new wider and protected footpaths increased the pedestrian priority, reducing congestion and improved driver behaviour at the front of school. Very often you arrive at a school and it's not actually clear where everybody is supposed to be and who's supposed to be where. So it's not, as I say, it's not rocket science. It's very simple. Is it clear? Is it clear where the bus is supposed to park? Is it clear to the drivers that that's where the bus is supposed to park? Is there blue badge space marked? And that's very important. We always put those in. And again, to future-proof it for a school in case they have an additional needs unit to come down the line. You know, so sometimes it's just by line marking and signage. So it's not a massive infrastructure. You know, you mightn't actually be doing much work. That actually helps to improve the front of the school. Again, this school had a school zone as well, so that's where we actually mark out a school zone at the start and the end of it. Outside a school, it's usually about 20 metres each side of the school. It can be longer depending on it, and you can see the the red band here with the road markings on it. Again, very simple, but again, it's highlighting to the driver that you're entering a school zone, you're entering an area that there's going to be children around, and there'll be elements there like the colourful school bollards, pencil bollards, and signage as well. So I'll just move on into the next one. And again, I wanted to kind of look at the giving, you know, I'm always talking about priority for the children. You know, we have to put the children first. So it's always pedestrian priority. And again, just reading the clip from this one, at present, our school is dangerous at drop off and pick up, not a suitable or no suitable crossing near our school. School is situated on dangerous bend. Road outside school is fast and has a high volume of trucks, tractors. So it's a terrible bottleneck, drop-offs or pickup times. And again, I mean, you could write this outside most other schools. You know, it's so similar, and that's the thing. Like, it's, you know, the issues are very, very similar. How we solve them or how we can help them sometimes might need to be tweaked depending on that particular school. So it can be very individual. And again, we're heading down to Limerick this time. So this is in Carrick College School. Again, smaller school, so 120. The modes of transport are walking, 55%, which is great, and car, 42%, so nearly half and half. This particular one, the scheme that my colleagues in Safe Routes to School actually worked in collaboration with Limerick City and Limerick's County Council, so the two together. And they did actually work in the parking. So what they did is they actually changed the orientation of the parking. So to parallel, and using the additional spaces to create a continuous footpath into the school, protected with pencil bollards. So sometimes you can see here, there's the before photo and there's the after. So sometimes we have to leave the parking in. There's no alternative. However, by realigning it, just changing the orientation, it just makes it so much safer because we get the space back for pedestrians. And that's really important, is to try and look at a school and just see, is there something there? Is there any bit of leeway, any bit of wiggle room at all that we can get a footpath in? And again, you can see the lovely scheme here. So before and then after, with the pencil bollards and the planters and things like that, just making it, you know, look and feel more child friendly, and a really nice crossing. This was a kind of a crunch one here as well. To reduce the number of cars coming to the front of school, a new crossing has been provided to link the school with the church car park, creating a park and stride location that is less than 5 minutes walk from the school. Again, a game changer for a school like this. Very often we arrive in villages and there's no crossings at all, none. So even by putting in just one crossing in a key position, key place, you're linking an existing car park. So it means that people can, you know, so it's not a very far walk, but it's better than having all of those children coming, you know, or even half of them who are coming by car, all arriving by car up at the front of the gate of the school. So again, it's using what's there, but just in a little bit more imaginatively, I suppose you could say. Another one I wanted to touch on, and, you know, Alan and I were discussing this before, is, you know, wayfinding, connecting paths, and working then with kind of tricky situations. But this is a little bit different than some of our schemes that we would have done. So we're heading down to Cork now. So we're looking at Haven. So of course, Haven, if anybody knows, is very hilly. So this school Regis, is up at the top of a hill, and you can see there's no footpaths. You literally have a shared space. So when we carried out our travel survey, we could see that 84% of the respondents said that new improved footpaths would help support active travel. So again, working with Cork County Council, they developed a school zone at School Regis. So they had the colourful and child-friendly road design. The other element that they put in was these series of wayfinding elements. So this is including shared surfaces, and I'll just show you that that's up here. So you can see here where you would have just had, and this is very similar to a lot of schools where you just have a tarmac area and there's no lines, there's no, nobody knows where they're supposed to be. And it's certainly, if you're a child walking to school, you'd have no idea. You'd be just walking in the middle of that, you wouldn't know. So to actually see it now that there is this clear marking with the buff is lovely. Just really nice, clear, very smart, slick wage to show where you need to be. There was crossings, art installations, and also traffic calming measures, which have really helped improve pedestrian priority and slow down the traffic. So our gateway elements can be, the ramps can be raised, so they help to slow down the traffic, and they also provide a crossing area for the children. And again, it's this visual then that drivers are entering the school zone area. I love this one because it's just a little bit different. It has an array of street art, seating and congregation areas, planters and pens and bollards. So it's improving the visibility outside the school. So you can see all this here. So they've got some fun elements here. So they got the hopscotch and, the roundels, colourful roundels on the road, and then some seating here. So again, really using little things a little bit outside of the box. And again, just showing here where the raised ramp here, and then the drop curb down onto the crossing area. So just lovely, some very simple elements, just work very well. This next one I want to show you is again something just a little bit different, and you mightn't have seen things like this before, but we're heading to Dublin. So we're going to South Dublin now. This is a very typical scene in a lot of our urban schools, and it's just one of the bugbears of mine. I personally, as a parent, I just think I would dread to think my kids ended up in a school like this, where you just have that, and it's no fault of the schools, it's just what's being provided all along, is these horrible grey metal railings that you just look like, and this just all concrete, hard, sharp infrastructure. Like there's nothing soft or visual about, nothing inviting at all. And look at it now. So basically they got together with the team and worked out a simple thing to paint the railings a different colour and to create them as little pencils. You can see just the tips of them there. So you're really using the imagination. So bringing playfulness and colour into the scheme. This, again, the mural, it's very hard to see in this picture, but it is amazing. There's a massive mural painted on this concreted area under the bridge, just fabulous. And then by creating or installing all the pencil bollards just around this, it's just amazing. It just gives a completely different feel to the area. And again, it's all about the children. Like our program's all about getting children in and out of school safely. So, doing this, just creating a safe place, it's much more inviting to for active travel. This one I think is just genius. So again, if you've ever been to Cavan, we're heading up to Cavan now. It's very hilly, and this particular school, up the top of the very steep steps, kids were walking and cycling. Basically, they got this ingenious little rail that actually you can wheel your bikes or your scooters up or down. And I love the quote from the kids, like, the ramp is a little tricky to wheel bikes and scooters up. It's easy to wheel bikes and scooters down. So it's been hard going up, but it's grand coming down. It's great to have the ramp so we can use the parking at the front of the school. So the cycle parking is installed up the top of the hill. It just there was no space at the bottom to put it because it's just on a footpath. So again, just something very clever, very simple ideas. Just, how you can do things that are effective, and again, like a lot of our surveys would say, parents won't allow their children to take their bikes to school or scooters because there's no parking for them. It's not safe for them, or they get stolen. Something simple as that. Isn't that that would be awful? That would be a barrier to somebody not cycling to school because they've nowhere safe to put it. So that's why we do all of that. Again, I just wanted to finish off with just something, not that I'm biased in any way, but I have a few schools that I have done some work with that they just pop up. And this is I just thought this was a nice little story I just wanted to finish up on. So this is a small rural school in Kilcurry, which is on the outskirts of Dundalk. It's on the Armagh Road leading out of Dundalk. So a very busy road. You can see very different density here in our map. So you can see that actually most of the children, the students are living outside of the 2 kilometre actually. So it's a very unique situation with this school. Lucky enough, I was actually, I'd worked with the school on Green Schools Travel many, many years ago. So we had done our WOW days, which is walking on Wednesdays. We'd done what we could, but there was a big issue with a lack of a crossing. The crossing has since been installed, not through this programme, but just before this. However, the new principal came in, and the new principal was actually another principal that I'd worked with in another school in Dundalk town itself, where we had done many WOW days and walking buses. So this principal came to me. He was on the list waiting to be rolled into the next round. And we spoke last August, and we were waiting for the round 3 to be rolled in. And I knew their school was going to be on the list. And we had a good chat. And he said, what can we do and what can we start? We've an awful issue with parking at the front of the school gate. And I suggested, well, why don't you start doing your WOW days even before anything happens and see, how the buy-in gets, how it goes. They have a community centre not far. It's only about 250 metres away. So that's what they did. So trying to reduce this car number from 82% and probably more. The parking stride idea had already been kind of, little element in the school. So we've worked on that. So nothing has happened at the school yet. We've gone through the whole process with them now. All the plans have gone off now to be drafted up. However, that particular principal and I met the Parents Association and we've worked together. So over the last few months, they have worked really hard. And what they do now is that every Wednesday, they have a walking bus and they're going from their local community centre. And up until January, now it's actually higher now, they have over 80% of those children walking from the parking stride, from the car park there to the school. So it means that we've completely changed the front of school without one shovel being lifted. Nothing has been built yet, but they preempted what was going to happen, what needed to be done. And it's just amazing. And, and it all came out of just these conversations, and I'll just quote you here, I live very close to the school and I would love to walk or cycle to school, but the road is too dangerous, traffic speeding and no footpaths. I support any work will facilitate this. So we took these quotes and we took these comments from the parents and said, and I met them and I said, look, this is something we can do. Are you willing to do this? Are you up for it? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. So from January, because, we always tell schools, don't worry about the weather, just start it, just get going. Don't be waiting and pushing it back, just get going. And once a week. And they do little rewards for the children up in Louth. Their thing is match attack cards. They're mad for them. So that's what they reward the kids. So they do a little walking bus journal now. That's what it's grown into because it's become so popular. So again, it's using simple things. It's talking to people. It's talking to the key stakeholders in a school and asking them what they want. And it's amazing by involving the people who are responsible for the journeys of school children, which are the parents and the caregivers, you really do get buy-in. If you exclude them and they feel excluded, from the whole process, it's very difficult to get buy-in, So that would be my one big advice to everybody, from now on, is you've got to talk to parents and caregivers. You've got to be involving them in the decision making. And they love that. I think that's my last slide. Have I one more? I suppose I just would love to finish again, thanks to Mary and Alan for highlighting this. But, in my opinion, I would always say we all have a responsibility, like all of us here today, in our respective roles, to really be bold and to take these steps in removing parking where we can. This does set an example for the rest of the community and hopefully will create that snowball effect, encouraging others to do the same. It can be risky, it can feel hard, it can feel very uncomfortable. I've gotten over that now, that feeling of telling a school, no, I'm sorry, we're not giving you more parking. We're actually going to take it away because I've seen now and I can prove it that it will work and it will be far better for them. I suppose, none of us, if we won't change if none of us aren't brave enough to take those first few steps, And look, I just want to say I'm more than happy to speak to anyone and share my experiences if it does help in any way. I think it's a great way that we can grow and we can we can help each other with that. And I just hope that together we will be in a better position, to fix the school parking issue and that it won't be an issue from, for very long, for very more. So again, thank you very much, Alan and Mary, and back to you, Alan.
Thanks, Susan. That's brilliant. Really, really interesting case studies there, actually. And I think we'll hopefully get a couple of minutes to go through. There's some questions in the Q&A, I think, to tackle. So I'm going to talk literally for 5 minutes about the let's call it the parking solutions and interventions, and we'll leave some time for Q&A. And look, the first thing I really wanted to highlight is, as Susan has pointed out, demand is always going to exceed supply. For that 15 or 20-minute window twice a day, you could never provide enough parking. It's as simple as that. And the things you might design or try to design to accommodate the vehicles at that time of day, and it depends on the school context. And of course, we have to bear in mind we do have captive car users, as they're called. Some individuals maybe with accessibility challenges who do need to drive, and certainly they should be prioritized in our thinking. But demand is always going to exceed supply. That maybe goes without saying. The second thing I wanted to quickly reflect on is, and I know those of you who are involved in traffic and parking will be familiar, with the calls for more parking controls, and maybe people jumping straight into solutions like we need pay and display so that people don't park up and they're not parking in the residential area, or put down parking zones, double yellows, clearways, and things like that. That's jumping straight into, as I say, the solutions. And I think Susan has really spoken really well there about how you can arrive at solutions to the problem without necessarily tackling let's call it the pointy end of the stick when it comes to parking. And I know, you may be, if you're involved in traffic and parking, you may be asked from time to time, oh, send the traffic warden, send them up, issue tickets, things like that. And I suppose if you're in that position, you're sort of already fighting a losing battle, because enforcement is really tricky, as I know you all know. In that scenario, it's just a lightning rod for conflict, really. Enforcement probably is part of the solution, but on its own, it's not. And I just highlighted something here. Some of you might be familiar with this, but I've gone and seen these CCTV cars in operation in the UK, and that's a solution that they moved in a lot of school zones over there, where cars are picking up the offences and sending out tickets in the post automatically and things like that. And I'd say that's definitely a last resort in the Irish context. We don't have the legislation for it, first of all. But I think we'd have to be failing at everything else if we had to introduce something like that here. I do think they have an application in the bus lane monitoring and stuff like that, but certainly enforcement and controls, they have a part, but they're only a small part of the solution. And the final thing I'd like to say is, and echoing what Susan pointed out, partnership is really the key to designing the solutions here, and considering the travel needs of a school in terms of that inverted pyramid of priorities, and working with the school residents as well. I'm sure as local authorities, you're hearing complaints from residents. You're being asked to sort it out, and maybe sometimes the school thinks that their responsibility ends at the gate, and then it's over to you. But really, as Susan has very eloquently pointed out, it really can't be done without that partnership approach. And some of the best examples I've seen certainly have been based on partnership, and that kind of I suppose behavioral change approach. Certainly the data insights that Susan has highlighted there, which I guess any school in the country could be doing. Safe Routes to School has been brilliant for its participant schools in taking them through that process. But if a school isn't currently part of that program and you as a local authority are engaging with them, heat mapping where everybody lives is quite simple to do. Surveying parents and understanding the travel habits, also very easy to do. And based on that data, then you can get into that kind of collaborative dialogue and start designing interventions that will shift the children and the parents to different modes of transport. And your parking problem then I won't say disappears altogether, but shifting people away from their cars is certainly the single biggest thing you can do to solve that issue.